Best friends Ashley and Miranda turn up missing 2 months apart from each other. Local police and the FBI are stumped. As details of the case begin to trickle out into the community, suspicion lands on a local dude, and yet nobody could have ever expected a family of killers. My name is M. William Phelps. I'm an investigative journalist and the true crime author of close to 50 books. I've dedicated the past 20 years of my life to helping families of the missing and murdered. Join me. We're crossing the line. Ashley Pond is your typical 12-year-old, managing best she can through life at home and middle school during the winter of 2002. On January 9th, Ashley wakes up just a little bit late. And we all know that being set back just a few minutes that early into your day can throw off everything. It's past 8 a.m. now, and Ashley is hustling to get herself down the street from the Newell Creek Village apartment complex in Oregon City, Oregon, where she lives with her mother, Lori Pond. Of course, Ashley's hope is that the bus hasn't come yet. Ashley has long, straight black hair parted in the middle, her bangs generally tucked behind her ears. She comes across as any other middle schooler might, wearing sweatshirts and jeans mostly, chats it up in the hallways with her best friend, Miranda Gaddis, and generally displays a calm and cheery disposition many of her peers are drawn to, despite what is a tough home life that has been, to say the least, quite challenging for the young girl in recent years. As a member of the Garriner Middle School dance team, along with her bestie Miranda, Ashley is passionate about rap and hip-hop. Her favorite color is yellow and, in one way, explains the type of young girl she is, bright and sunny. Oregon City, Oregon is a unique place. Located in one of the farthest northern points of the state on the western side, with hot, dry summers and cool, wet winters, the overall climate is considered similar to the Mediterranean. Never gets too hot or too cold no matter what time of the year. With an economy centered around the lumber industry, in 2002 the city housed some 28,000 residents. So this is not a big city per se. It has that community feel, especially the neighborhood on the hilly road where Ashley and Miranda live. Ashley loves cup of soup. In fact, she would call it her favorite meal. And just beyond that small but telling detail, the one thing that stood out to me as I researched this case was how Ashley has been described as someone who gives out random hugs to people she believes needs them. Such a seemingly small but loving gesture that says so much about the type of young person she is. On that January 9th morning, Ashley doesn't make it on the bus and, as it turns out, never shows up for school. She could have, of course, missed the bus, had no other way of getting to school, and decided to go home and play hooky. But when her mother, Lori Pond, finds out Ashley isn't in school, never got on the bus, and is not at home, Lori wonders if something is terribly wrong. Ashley is not that child you have to worry about. She isn't involved with the group getting into trouble or rebelling. She is independent and has lived away from home before, but the idea that Ashley decided to run away is not part of the conversation. If anything, Ashley is a kid who would gladly tell you she was leaving. When Lori calls the local police to report Ashley missing, they do not judge or view the situation as a runaway young girl who will be found down by the bridge or in the park drinking and smoking weed. They take the situation at face value and begin looking for her right away. And I give them a lot of credit for that. Their problems will come later. The initial search turns up no sign of Ashley anywhere. No one in school has seen or heard from her. Ashley's best friend, Miranda Gaddis, is especially alarmed because she expected to see Ashley that day. She'd not mentioned anything about staying home or taking off. Weeks go by. People in the neighborhood get together and conduct searches for Ashley, including her best friend, Miranda. Posters are pinned to telephone poles. Flyers handed out. Vigils held. Law enforcement go door to door. They look into any local pedophiles or familiar suspects and, according to what they say later, come up with nothing of value pointing them one way or another. Weeks turn into a month, and soon, 2 full months pass and not a clue as to where Ashley could be. Of course, nobody says it out loud, but her friends and family are thinking the worst, as are investigators. Somebody grabbed Ashley as she made her way to the bus stop that morning. She could be halfway across the country by now, in Canada, Mexico, or even nearby. Who knows? No one is probably more confused and saddened by it all than Miranda Gaddis, Ashley's best friend. They did everything together. Best friends then had a different connotation, I think, seeing that the internet age was just beginning. Lots of kids spent long hours outside, playing, hanging out together, meeting up with other kids. Miranda is now left without answers, without the one person she could share anything with. Her best friend was there one day, gone the next. It makes no sense to her. Just beyond the Newell Creek Village apartment complex where Ashley lives is South Beaver Creek Road, where Miranda and Ashley's friend, 12-year-old Mallory Weaver, lives with her dad, Ward, and her older brother, Francis. Ashley and Miranda would sometimes hang out over at Mallory's, even do sleepovers. Mallory is also part of the school dance team, and the three of them would sometimes chum around together. Mallory seems just as devastated as Miranda. She cannot believe what is happening. Mallory's dad, Ward, would at times drive the girls to school when one or all of them were running late, so the group had a tight bond and knew each other very well. The Weavers had lived in the house on Beaver Creek since 1997. Ward had gone through a second divorce and moved into town for what he says later is a fresh start in a new place. With Ashley still missing, during those weeks after, when the girls, Mallory and Miranda, walk out of their homes, they run into a constant reminder. Media crews and satellite trucks lined up and down the street. It feels ominous and foreboding, but also tells everyone in the community that people still care. Ashley isn't forgotten. As the 2-month mark hit, and Ashley is still nowhere to be found, with law enforcement investigating but not saying much of anything, just about all of that media presence has moved on. People are still handing out flyers, and the FBI is deeply immersed in an investigation, but the neighborhood is getting back to about as normal as it could after such a devastating loss of a well-known and well-liked preteen resident. One quote that really struck me is from a family member speaking out about everything during that specific time period, explaining how the nighttime is the worst. Quote, "Because at night is usually when you talk to those you love the most, and Ashley is not there." It's those moments, the stolen time, the absence of the missing person, and abduction or murder steals. The subtle reminders that the person you love took up space in your life, and their presence is what matters more than anything to you. And when you have a missing person out there and the family has no idea what happened to them, the mind fills in the blanks. A sort of secondary suffering sets in that you could have never planned for. Miranda Gaddis is certainly feeling that emptiness left behind from losing her best friend, as she goes about her days trying her best to get through school and dance practice. One morning, as Miranda is walking up near the top of a hilly portion along the same street where Ashley went missing on her way to the bus stop, she sees a man in his yard doing something. She knows this man. As she is walking by the house looking on, he spots her. "Miranda," he says, perhaps being neighborly. "Hi." But the man does seem startled. Miranda walks over. "Hello?" "Hey," he says, out of nowhere. Ashley is inside. She wants to go home. She is very scared. Miranda walks over, curious about this statement. Obviously. Wait a second. Ashley is inside this guy's house? She wants to leave, go back home? How could she be so close to home but not found? For 2 months. Is this some sort of sick joke? "Come on," he says. "I'll show you." 13-year-old Miranda Gaddis heads up the pathway toward the man's front door. There's no doubt the only thing on her mind as she's walking is being able to finally see her best friend and help her return home. Let's take a break here, come back, and get into what is a case with so many questions left to be answered, and yet so many answers you are going to find hard to believe. Be right back.
This season on Very Scary People, Christine Belford reports her 3 young daughters missing. She has no idea where they are, but she knows who took them. Her ex-husband has teamed up with her former in-laws to do whatever it takes to have total control of the girls, including stalking, harassment, and even murder. Listen to Very Scary People wherever you get your podcasts.
Miranda Gaddis has always dreamt of becoming a model. And she has that wholesome look about her, which would have taken her wherever she wanted to go in life. Her family describes her as funny, loving, caring, very outgoing, and friendly. She also looks very similar to her missing best friend, Ashley Pond. On March 8th, 2002, just about 2 months to the day Ashley went missing, Miranda's mother receives a call from her other daughter, Miranda's older sister. Miranda was not at school and no one has seen her all day. This is one of those, oh God, no moments, considering what has taken place in this neighborhood. It's about 1:30 p.m. Miranda's mother heads directly to the police. Could it be a coincidence? Could Miranda be out there somewhere upset, skipping school? After all, everyone is walking on eggshells, full of anxiety, still, even after 8 weeks of searching for Ashley. Police and the FBI get on things immediately. 2 best friends, 2 months apart, similar in looks, same age, same neighborhood, both now missing? After a wide search produces no results, with days and then weeks going by, law enforcement realizes it has a problem in this section of Oregon City. A problem many would later claim they were warned about. When police interviewed Miranda just after Ashley went missing, she had told them Ashley claimed that a neighbor had sexually abused her in those months before she went missing. Miranda gave police the dude's name. They went to his house, spoke to him, took a quick look around the yard and surrounding area, and claimed later to have found nothing, while explaining that they were waiting on a signed search warrant before taking things any further with the guy. Ashley had told her mother about the sexual abuse allegations, but according to ABC News, Lori Pond never took her daughter to the doctor or called police to determine if the rape had actually occurred. Miranda was quick to tell police that she knew it had happened. This wasn't just any guy. Ward Weaver, whose daughter Mallory is also friends with Ashley and Miranda, had a history of abuse and accusations of even more violent offenses, not to mention his own father, at that time sitting on death row in California for a double murder and rape. And his father's victim's body had been found buried in the Elder Weaver's California yard. I mean, look, I don't like to question law enforcement, but come on. With that history, Ward Weaver has to be the first dude you pull in and take a serious crack at once you have not only one young girl he knows and lives basically next door to missing, but now 2 young girls? It'd be negligent, I think, not to go after the guy with everything you have, knowing all of that information about him, which the FBI and Oregon City Police certainly had within hours after Ashley went missing. Still, as April 2002 passed, then May, June, and July, nothing happens. It's not until August 2002, and only after Ward Weaver's son, Francis's 19-year-old girlfriend, runs out of the house and into the street naked and screaming before flagging down a passing motorist to explain what is going on. That's what has to happen in order for police to go after Ward Weaver. And then suddenly it seems Ward Weaver becomes a serious suspect. In fact, according to multiple reports, it is Ward's son, Francis, who calls 911 to report that his father had attempted to rape his girlfriend, that naked woman running into the street. And while Francis is talking to the dispatcher, he also says, my dad, he confessed to me that he murdered Ashley and Miranda because, quote, they deserved it. What's even more alarming is that one of Ward Weaver's ex-wives had come forward just after Miranda went missing. According to her, she explained to police everything they needed to know in order to find Miranda and Ashley. One of the pieces of information the ex-wife shared was that in the days after Miranda Gaddis went missing, Ward poured a cement slab in his backyard. If you recall, Ward's father, the scumbag on death row for rape and double murder, had done the same thing many years prior. Again, information easily verified by law enforcement within a few hours. One unidentified neighbor told ABC News later on that there were plenty of indications at the beginning, hints that people were giving, but law enforcement never acted on them. Those are strong words. Because if true, those investigating Ashley's disappearance could have theoretically saved Miranda's life. Others were quick to come out and defend investigators, saying law enforcement needed evidence in order to get a search warrant, and they just didn't have enough right away. This debate would go on for years and years, with law professors weighing in and experts breaking down the specifics of the law and how search warrants are obtained. But I'll say this. With a guy like Ward Weaver, his pedigree, living in your neighborhood, and not one but 2 young girls missing, I do not think it would have been that difficult to find a judge to sign off on a search warrant of the guy's property a lot sooner than the 8 months it eventually took. Please. I've seen search warrants signed off on the most basic circumstantial evidence you can imagine. Here in this case, they had an ample amount of evidence, along with a ticking clock per se, with one girl missing, to get inside Ward Weaver's house and on his property. It's a cop-out, no pun intended, for them to claim otherwise. Maybe the pun is intended. Police arrive to interview Francis Weaver's girlfriend, who tells them that Ward Weaver not only sexually assaulted her, but placed a pillow over her head and tried to smother her. Ward Weaver would later tell several reporters that the sex was consensual. Sex with his son's girlfriend was consensual. Ward Weaver is, frankly, a scumbag of the worst type. He's a creepy-looking bastard, too. Slicked back, dark brown hair, one of those nasty and thick Anchorman Ron Burgundy-type mustaches, close-set eyes, beady and black, and a perpetual look of depravity about his face. Look up the guy's mugshot from 2002 and you'll see what I mean. If that bastard lived next door to me, I'll say, there's no question I would judge him on looks alone and not allow my kids anywhere near the son of a bitch. In researching this story, I came across Ward Weaver's traumatic childhood and sordid history of growing up and living around violence. It almost feels like excusing his later behavior and violent crimes to go through it all here. So it's important to note that tens of thousands of children, perhaps more, grow up in violent homes, are abused, and do not go on to rape and murder people. Yes, Ward was beaten by his father and stepfather. He was abandoned at a young age. He then projected that rage as he grew toward his younger brother and sister and his own son, Francis. That cliched, vicious cycle experts talk about. It's clear and present here, but it's not a damn excuse. In any killer's history, we can usually see what's coming. It's at times utterly obvious in retrospect. When Ward Weaver was 18, he was accused of raping a relative. He joined the Navy, so authorities let him off and forgot about it. He met his first wife in the Philippines, brought her back home, controlled, beat, and emotionally abused her. He married a second time and did the same thing. Ward Weaver's father was a truck driver. Driving one day, he stops for a motorist and his young girlfriend, who needed help on the side of the road. What does he do? He beats the man to death with a pipe, kidnaps the girl, and repeatedly rapes and tortures her all the way back to his house. Then he strangles the woman after she bites him. The elder Ward Weaver then employs his then 10-year-old boy, Ward Weaver III, to help him dig a hole in the yard, bury her with cement before building a deck above the grave. So this 10-year-old accomplice to murder is the guy living next door to two young girls his own daughter is friends with, who then go missing. And law enforcement, incidentally, knew this history obviously in the hours or at least days after Ashley Pond went missing. I mentioned retrospect a minute ago. How's this for a telling look into the eyes of a multiple murderer? In July 2002, just before that 19-year-old girl ran out of Ward Weaver's house and reported that he was raping her and that he tried to smother her, Ward gives a local news station, KATU, an interview. He invites a reporter onto his property. In one part of the interview, he and the reporter walk over a freshly poured patch of concrete. He tells the reporter that he is the FBI's #1 suspect in both girls' disappearances. He walks the reporter around his house and talks about how the girls would sleep over because they were friends with his daughter, Mallory. It's clear Ward is enjoying this moment, gloating almost. As they go back outside and walk over the fresh concrete, Ward says this: "I'm installing a new jacuzzi. Last time I checked, that wasn't against the law." Ward Weaver is finally arrested in the days after his son's girlfriend reported what happened to her. Once he is arrested, the guy he is renting the house from posts an eviction notice on the property. As the landlord is pinning the sign onto a shed out back, he notices thousands of flies hovering around a pile of cardboard. A few days later, Ashley Pond's stepmother is caught on film by news crews putting up a sign on that fresh concrete slab that reads, "Dig me up." Good for her. Many neighbors in the immediate area of the house report an incredibly rancid odor with the right breeze. By August 23rd, the FBI finally has a search warrant and are now able to go onto the property and begin looking for the girls. As they talk to Francis Weaver, Ward's son, he tells them about the concrete slab Ward had recently poured. And listen to this. "I helped him dig out the area," Francis says. "He told me it was for a jacuzzi." Let's take our final break here. Come right back. This case is a lot to wrap your mind around in an episode of a podcast. I have left certain things out for time constraints. Most important to me are the girls, Ashley and Miranda, and Weaver's other victims. The FBI seals off the property, and they get to work searching the grounds. They soon find Ashley Pond's body in a cardboard box inside the shed out back where all those flies were buzzing around. Miranda's body, to no one's surprise, is discovered inside an old oil drum, which Ward Weaver, with the help of his son, buried underneath that concrete slab. At first, Ward denies having anything to do with the girls' deaths. Sure, their killer just happened to pick his yard to bury the bodies. Idiot. He is ultimately indicted on 6 counts of aggravated murder, and also myriad rape and sexual abuse charges. And all those charges pertain to the 2 girls. He still denies any involvement for 2 additional years. Then they come at him with the death penalty, and suddenly Ward Weaver remembers, oh, you mean those bodies? Well, yeah, I did actually rape and murder those girls. In 2004, avoiding the death penalty, Ward Weaver pleads guilty to the murder charges, and he refuses to fight the additional charges and is sentenced to 2 life terms. He has no chance of parole, ever. But this case doesn't end there. Miranda Gaddis' sister in 2009, now an adult, visits Ward Weaver in prison. She wants some sort of answer, I am only guessing. Closure about what happened so she doesn't have to wonder the rest of her life. She later reports that Ward Weaver tells her, quote, I planned on murdering you next and killed both girls with my bare hands. With that, you'd think the case ends. But things come full circle when, in 2014, you're not going to believe this, Ward Weaver's son, Francis, now a 3rd-generation murderer, is part of a group charged with murder after killing a drug dealer. In 2016, Francis Weaver is sentenced to life in prison. So Ward's dad is on death row. Ward is doing 2 life terms, and now Francis is doing life. A father, his son, and that father's son, all in prison for murders they committed over 3 generations. Just when you think you've heard it all, a case like this comes around, and, at least for me, when I sat back and thought about it, I concluded that human beings, perhaps since we have been on the planet, have killed each other for the same reasons, some with unchecked and uncontrollable twisted desires and urges, and this part of our psyche will perhaps never change. But what we can change is how we allow the law to get in the way of what we know to be true during the early, most important part of an investigation, especially in missing person cases. I'm not saying the FBI and Oregon City Police were knowingly negligent. I do not want to send that message. I do not believe they were. Yet, perhaps the protocol for a search warrant needs to be looked at more closely in the district and relaxed a bit. So many laws surrounding missing person cases need to be looked at, updated, and changed. That's it for this week. Thanks to Synthia from Portland for sending me this one. I appreciate it. You were right. One hell of a crazy case that needs to invoke some social change. Before I go, please get over to patreon.com/MWilliamPhelps and sign up for my free content page, where I'll be interacting with you, doing live streams, posting exclusive content, sending out newsletters, and dropping a major limited series podcast exclusively for Patreon members later this year. That's patreon.com/MWilliamPhelps. patreon.com/MWilliamPhelps. Please be safe, be aware. Sources for this episode I used include The Disturbing Story of Ward Weaver III by Neil Patmore, allthatisinteresting.com, November 8th, 2022. Portland Tribune reporter Janine O'Neill's book, Close to Home, Sexual Abusers and Serial Killers, Memoir and Murder. Search warrants and arrest affidavits for Ward Weaver. Step by Step, an Oregon Killer Case by Brian Dax, CBS News, August 30th, 2022. Crossing the Line is executive produced by M. William Phelps, LLC, and Matthew Valentinus, Mom's Basement Management. Written by me, M. William Phelps. Audio mastering and mixing by Matt Russell. Music by Epidemic Sound. Original music written and performed by Thomas Mooney, Tom Phelps, and Matt Russell.